All I'm going to say in this intro is lots of comments last week thought, just as I'm starting to like Niles, he goes and does something like that. And that didn't turn out to necessarily be what a lot of people expected with Cliff. But the end of this episode, Niles, please. Please, Niles, don't just... What is up, Doom Patrollers? Welcome to a brand new review analysis for Doom Patrol, episode 7, written by Tamara Becher Wilkinson and Eric Detail. Again, sorry for butchering names, and it was directed by Jessica Lowry. And this episode, so much happened. So much significant stuff happened. It had all the wacky elements of Doom Patrol to such an extent where I just loved it. But so much significant stuff happened to the point of where we're closing towards the end of the season now. Now, episode 8, some major stuff's going to go down. Episode 9 is the final episode. Unfortunately, due to the whole situation with, the pandemic affecting that, we were, I believe, meant to get 10 episodes. It's just, I have so much to say. I'm sure you guys have so much to say. I also have a special announcement. Abigail Shapiro, who plays Dorothy Spinner herself, has agreed to do a little chat on the channel, an interview, and I can't wait to do that. I believe the interview will be going up sometime, hopefully after episode 8, due to the fallout and things that will happen in that episode. And I think you can imagine why, given the end of this episode. I can't wait to talk to her. You guys must imagine how ecstatic I am. And that reminds me, if any of you are Stargirl fans, yesterday I put up an interview with Jake Austin Walker, who plays Brainwave Jr. It was a fantastic time. I really enjoyed myself. We bounced well off each other. So go check that out, just in case for some reason YouTube didn't send that to your sub box. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to get into breakdown. But before we do, if you really like what I do here on this channel, I'd really appreciate a like. Make sure you subscribe for all kinds of videos like this, and of course with notifications on so you don't miss out on the Dorothy Spinner interview with Abigail Shapiro herself. And let's get into the beginning. So at the beginning, I was really banking on this to happen as well, that it wasn't as bad as what we thought in terms of Niles, especially if you saw the trailer was going off to meet the Candlemaker according to the trailer, and obviously we'll get into that towards the end of this video because I want to break it down in story chunks. But Cliff was just sent back to Earth. I did suspect that was going to happen anyway, and he had a really rough time of it this episode, but I'm really happy with how wholesome that ended up. And this episode also picked off with Rita, with her having that bad dream. She got told that Isabel got run over by a tractor, and her reaction was just priceless. yeah. I love you, April Bowlby. That's when her mother appeared in her dream saying that Rita wasn't actually the first choice to play the blob lady from the casting lady. Her mum changed her mind with doing what she did in the past. And obviously, as I said, this was a nightmare. So I knew this episode we were finally getting into Rita's story, her confronting her kind of trauma, if you will, in her past. And that went places this episode. I was so happy to find out. Yet again, talk more about this a little bit later. But also we had Vic finally bringing Roni back to Doom Manor. I thought this would actually happen a lot earlier in the season. And this entailed for some wacky stuff for just everybody on the Doom Manor side of things. And also another thing I think we were all probably excited about this episode is Miranda, because we had Rita meeting Miranda for the first time after her going around Doom Manor just constantly saying her B's, because that was her one line in the whole play, but it doesn't mean you can't give her your all. We also had Roni there. This was really interesting because Miranda, yeah, we'll get into what the Queen said about her later, but at this point in the episode, for all intents and purposes, she is a lovely personality. There's no reason why she shouldn't be the primary. She was even making pancakes because she wanted to let Dorothy know that they can work through this together. There's actually, it's kind of a peace offering. And to everyone's knowledge as well, Chief and Dorothy are still in space. And Dorothy was practically non-existent in this episode, just sleeping. But that's because there's so much more going on. This season, you have a lot more of, Doom Patrol's still very much so about exploring the characters. That is the identity of this show. That's something that attracts all of us so deeply to it. I personally love it. I've seen some people say that there's almost too much going on, but personally I don't have an issue with that because I like seeing these characters explore their past, their present, and how the past affects their present, whether that's in terms of Cliff coming to terms with his daughter, and Rita and Larry with his family, and that would naturally entail their slight own journeys, but they're still all very much so entwined together at the end of the day. I think it's just a little bit of a change from season 1 where it was all very much so together. But I don't see this as a negative whatsoever. I actually think it's like a new, interesting dynamic for a new season, whilst also maintaining the quality elements of storytelling that Doom Patrol so masterfully depicts for each character in each episode. Roni is definitely taken back by the weirdness that is Doom Manor, and they get a crate saying do not open. To be fair to them, they didn't actually open it. I think, the delivery service kind of may have smacked it a couple of times, enough for a little gab for that little kind of scent, if you will, or kind of, the scans, shall we say, to escape and infect everyone's minds. And this was such, I loved this. And also, I'm cutting to this early. I love that Willoughby Kipling was back. I said at the beginning of this season, because I didn't know at the time, will he be coming back after episode 1? I really hope so. I love Mark Sheppard. He fits in this show so well. It was a delight to see him back. Like, he wasn't littered in the episode, but for me, this was such a treat. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way, especially with his little love affair with Baphomet. Now, in the crate was the painting that ate Danny, obviously Mr. Nobody, and obviously Beard Hunter were in that, but they could not be seen in the painting. And if you guys remember, the painting was given to Willoughby Kipling, as well as Niles' little eternal necklace, if you will, in a trade-off to resize them in Fun Size Patrol in episode 1. But ever since that moment in episode 1, he explains that obviously everyone is infected in this episode through scans, and the painting was crawling with them when they traded it to Horst Eisman, although they didn't know it at the time. Now that old Swiss bastard entire collection is crawling with the buggers, and the only way to clear them out is the Queen and the butthole mask. Never change, writers. Never change, Doom Patrol. I love it. Now, with the Doom Patrol being infected by these scans, it gave them such bad ideas. For example, Larry going to the hospital, he was trying to speak to Miranda being the only one not infected. Very interesting. Now, this definitely pertains to the bigger mystery that we're just cracking the ice. It was great how Larry got flit out to teleport into the hospital. They're overconfident with these bad ideas. The Bureau were there. They tried to go in a doctor's uniform. The Bureau of Normalcy obviously kept finding them. As for Vic and Roni, the whole reason they came back to Doom Manor is because maybe Chief could help fix Ronnie's internal injuries, and to the point of where it's obviously leaking the poison into her organs, which will eventually kill her. But with Cyborg having the most advanced AI in the world, he's like, hey, I can fix you myself. Actually, I should probably give you something to bite down on. This reminds me of, some people may just say, oh, this is a filler episode. But one thing I will say, there's not always anything wrong with filler. If you compare it to something like a typical CW season, 22 episodes, that's where I take issue, because the main plot is just way too dragged out throughout the season. There's sometimes 4 episodes that go by or so before the thing that was addressed 4 episodes prior is picked up. What Doom Patrol does in an episode like this is we get fun, wacky adventures like this, but we get integral moments that still apply very much so to the story that is going on. Like, I don't really need to remind you, but Niles with Candlemaker, the thing that happens at the end, Cliff with his daughter, there's still so much stuff that is so much solidified in this compared to other shows out there that I don't ever take issue with it. That's why I prefer DC Universe seasons. It's like always, 9 to 15 episodes, and that just works so much better for a storytelling experience, keeps us audience much more engaged. Now, what are the scans? Now, Niles happens to have an old educational guide provided by the Knights Templar of all people. If you guys remember, the scans are these pink humanoid pests. They adhere to this kind of hierarchy, similar to bees, which very much so fits in with Rita's storyline this episode. There's a queen, and the faithful drones serve her by placing bad ideas in people's heads. Now, when your brain accepts these bad ideas as good ideas, a pink substance secretes from your ears, only visible to scans, and they harvest it and refine it into a more potent form known as Uma Jelly. I wouldn't mind some of that. And it looked like Roni didn't mind some of that as well, which I need to talk about later. There's so much for me to talk about. There always is. That's why these videos are so long. Now, at this point, they all enter the painting. Now, this was just brilliant. I live for stuff like this, and I think you guys know what I'm about to talk about. Now, first of all, they met Beard Hunter. Beard Hunter, great to see him again. He didn't have so much of a presence in this episode, but, obviously he's still in the painting. He's even made himself very white, so he blends in with the white interdimensional-esque space that is this place. And it actually works. The scans don't see him, to the point where everyone even hides behind him. But I want to wind back a couple of seconds, because the Doom Patrol naturally asks, where is Mr. Nobody? And that is when he said that Mr. Nobody has gotten a gig. Some kind of animated bullcrap, he says. DC Universe's Harley Quinn, this kind of little overlay popped up, and this is just so meta. So quite literally, if you look at it in this angle, the Joker on Harley Quinn, which is an amazing show, you need to watch it if you haven't already, is Mr. Nobody pretending, or should I just say voice acting the Joker. That's Mr. Nobody voicing the Joker on Harley Quinn. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yes. But yeah, I love the scans. I love the design of them. I remember them from back in the trailer. They remind me of Oompa Loompas. You can also see the little Uma jelly that they were carrying on their backs. The Doom Patrol get taken to the Queen's grand tent, if you will. And that tent just for some reason reminds me of the big tents in Harry Potter. I don't know. I don't know why. Did anyone else think that? But let's take a little break from this story and let's visit Rita's story, because this episode she was shadowing a beekeeper, which is quite an, I would say, extreme acting approach. Fair enough if you had a bigger role, but her only line was quite literally, "My bees." But this whole experience was really cathartic and therapeutic for Rita, because, you know, initially that is, she was quite frustrated with the beekeeper who has a daughter, because she was kind of being a bit harsh and strict on her own daughter, and it reminded her of her own experience with her mother. Rita eventually tells her about what her mum used to do with producers to help Rita get gigs and stuff like that. And then there was this different perspective offered by the beekeeper, and how Rita's mum maybe did what she did for Rita, but didn't realize that she was kind of shackling Rita with chronic self-doubt, because she couldn't necessarily land those roles herself without her mother's attempts at helping. But she ultimately did it because she loved Rita, and suggests a surrogate to get that therapeutic experience, but the surrogate being the bees. Now Rita does talk to the bees, and this was actually an emotional scene. It was so quick, but I don't know about any of you, it did make me tear up a bit, because I don't know, I expected it to go on a bit longer, but even with that little part she said, it kind of hit me. Because she was talking about, how am I supposed to fix something inside of me that you broke? And then lo and behold, after that, she witnesses somebody getting mugged. And as awesome as this moment was, she was like, I'm sorry, did that sting? I love the writers. They couldn't help themselves. But yeah, no, this was such an amazing moment. I love the little heroic pose she was doing. She managed to elasticate her arm out. I've had this a few times before on the shows, and so she has done it before, but I feel like this part doesn't necessarily close a chapter, but it's like she's kind of found a new beginning for herself, and that is awesome. But back to the Scant story. Now Kipling had been infected with those bad ideas. Quite literally, his idea was, once they kill me, then I'll initiate my plan. That makes sense. This is when we see the Queen. I just loved all of this. This was all absolutely fantastic. It was hilarious. Everyone was being drained to create the Uma jelly, of which she described as this pure, uncut enlightenment. And this is when the Queen reveals some very, very interesting things. Like, it's almost like mind reading. And there is truth to it, of the bad ideas that people are currently either having, such as Larry with the negative spirit. So there, for example, his biggest mistake is thinking that he can stay. She calls Cyborg and Roni their own worst ideas for just even being together. The moment she pointed out to Willoughby Kipling, like, no matter how many times you summon her, referring to Baphomet, she'll never love you. I did not expect that, but fair enough, Willoughby. But as for Miranda, that is where you can kind of put like a magnifying glass on it, because she says, I've never met somebody who displayed an immunity. I mean, I know there's a bad idea in there. I can smell it. Perhaps one of the worst ideas of all time. But somehow you're keeping it from me. And that is very, very interesting, especially when you link it to somebody going missing in the underground later on. But this is when the Sylvia personality comes out. I've missed seeing Sylvia, and she completely saves the day. She breaks the waterbed, punctures it, and then it's like, get the patch kit. And that was more or less the end of the Scanson their journey, even though it got freaking revealed. We found out that Roni took a vial of the bottled pure enlightenment, if you will, which literally gives you extraordinary abilities. So I don't know exactly where this is going, but I'm thinking Roni, once she gets it, or at least right now, she's kind of missing that. I'm not saying she wants to be the person we saw in the emails, that is kind of a very dark past for her, but I think she is almost maybe potentially hooked to the power she used to have, the cybernetics she was infused with, the abilities she had, and now she knows she can maybe have some semblance of getting that back. This could go in a very, very interesting way. But guys, let's move on to Niles Calder himself, the Chief, his story this episode. His story this episode was definitely interesting. We had Dorothy sleeping as he heads out to where they landed, which, is a place we have indeed seen before, the Northern Yukon Territory, way back in 1912, 13, 14, when he worked for the Bureau of Oddities, before it was the Bureau of Normalcy, and where he met his lady, the primitive woman, if you will. And he goes there to seek her guidance. Also, I just thought, I doubt Chief would be able to navigate that wilderness in a wheelchair, but at the same time, just use your comic book logic that he would have some kind of, built-in sciencey-wincy gadgets to, I don't know. I could imagine him flying up like R2-D2 if there was a tree stump in his way or something. Now, I was personally really anticipating this moment ever since I saw the trailer. He starts hearing voices whisper, and he thinks, he's sensing the primitive woman, and he speaks about their daughter. He calls Dorothy extraordinary, amazing, kind, pure in spirit, which makes the ending sting so much more. And I'm not saying you're got to misconstrue it this way, but I can imagine some people saying, screw you, Niles, screw you, Niles. And whilst I obviously do think it's the wrong decision, this is a man who's now being faced with a terrible decision, especially after his meeting with Candlemaker, because this is when he says that he now fears that he must do something awful because she is dangerous beyond measure. And he used to think that he had to protect her from the world, but now he has to protect the world from her. And I think we can all understand why. Like, truly, if she wished it, the world could end. Bang. So just for some context and to give some credit to Chief, he did go here to quite literally find a better way. Like, he literally said, if you know a better way, please tell me, show me. She's your daughter too. And lo and behold, Candlemaker appears, and we got some insanely interesting revelations here. Ones that I didn't even expect at all. Like, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a story being established onto Candlemaker's classical canon, which I find very, very wicked. As I said, it's not always copy and paste from the comics, even though they've done an incredibly faithful job, but now they've added Candlemaker being integrated and origin-wise into Dorothy's people, her mother's people, which was super, super interesting. So Candlemaker said, the mother can't hear you, she is gone, the child belongs with me, and soon father will join the mother while I endure. I was here before you, father, and I'll be here long after you are gone. This was just so cool. And he even goes on to say, you speak of the mother as if you know her. You're a fool. Just as the mother gave birth to the child, the mother gave birth to me. You speak of her ancestors, father. What do you think created me? And I did not expect that. I was like, oh, and I think a lot of you were as well. There's a reason why Candlemaker is here. But it's something that I can't comprehend, and I'm sure many of you can't comprehend just as much as Chief couldn't comprehend. Chief was literally saying, what did that monster mean when he said your people created him? Why would they curse Dorothy like this? How could you do this? How could you do this to our little girl? So I can't wait to find out the reason, and I really hope they give it. I really hope they give it, because sometimes in stories like this, it's left ambiguous. So I hope we know the reason why Candlemaker is kind of thought into existence. Maybe it was unintentional, because we know Dorothy's people, like, they have this ability to conjure things from their imagination. Usually Candlemaker in the comics is from like this extra dimensional place, wants to grant. I don't want to give too much away, just in case they are definitely doing something with that. And this kind of forces Niles into a corner with his decision that he went there to try and avoid. And that is to end the life of Dorothy to protect the planet. Which is horrible, but I do understand it. All I'm going to say here is that the more wishes that Dorothy has made, the more coherent and educated almost Candlemaker has become, more powerful even. Let's just say if more wishes get done, yeah. So I think Niles knows that he has to stop it before another wish gets made, which is why he's being pushed to the limit here. And I find that very interesting. Timothy Dalton's performance here gave off everything. It was incredible. It wasn't just Chief being cold. So speaking of Cliff, as we said, he landed and then burst through the animal, vegetable, mineral man billboard, which had some awesome Easter eggs from like the writers of Doom Patrol, including Gerard Way. I went over this in my trailer breakdown ages ago. Really was hoping to see animal, vegetable, mineral man this season again, like last season. There's still a chance, but I kind of doubt it now. Obviously, Cliff is fine, but he's pretty pissed off about what Chief did. He goes on about killing him. The guy comes along, and this is a way for him to get home, because at this point, and this has been teased for a few episodes now, his feet couldn't move, just like how his arm couldn't move when in Finger Patrol. Love seeing Cliff do those shout-outs. He couldn't get through to Doom Manor. Yet again, the sex ghosts are still appearing. And in that moment when he was leaving that voicemail, even though he was saying very mean things to his daughter, I really felt for him in this moment. Say what you will about Cliff, people often go left, right, and center with him. We really connected with him in season 1. It is such a horrible, imagine being in his position. But then this season, especially after the end of last season, but I think it's fully justified for his character, he's been very dickish because of the revelation of what Niles did. But this just instantly pulled back forefront and center the pain that this man experiences. But when he did arrive back at Doom Manor, I thought it was seriously awesome how the tape got mailed to Clara from Chief's confession. She was literally like, that man, Niles Calder, he really did all those things to you. So this was so wholesome. This is going to mean so much for Cliff's character. You can only imagine. I mean, I know you guys understand. So that was such a good and unexpected moment. I didn't know where things were going with his daughter. But this was fantastic. But guys, end of the episode. Very interesting stuff. The underground. So everyone's celebrating because of Miranda's success. This probably puts everybody thinking like, yep, Jane's time as primary is over. The original primary is now back. And I think we all made the best decision. But this is when Polly asks Jane if she has seen Scarlet Harlot, because she didn't show up for book club, and now she's starting to get worried. Now Jane starts investigating this, goes to a station, and it is closed off. What is going on there? Miranda is definitely up to something. I've already pointed out that the well obviously consists, what is in there is the entity of the father. That didn't go away when Jane managed to kind of best him last season in Jane Patrol. So how did Miranda, and why didn't she come back sooner? If she was reborn, well, I have all those questions. There's something fishy is going on. Amazing seed to plant in this episode for us to look forward to what is to come. I would love your theories down in the comments below as to what Miranda is up to. But honestly, going into this recording, I had to listen to some music to get myself hyped up to do it, because I was feeling quite depressed almost and sad because of that ending. Yet again, amazing performance by Timothy Dalton. I love how they added no music onto the credits. That was a very, very serious moment. Niles in this moment summoned Kipling out of the telephone box, and the second that happened, I knew what it was about. I think everyone would have. And that's when Kipling said, so this is that cool then. It is. He says, when? I need one more day. He asks what he will do with her, and he says, you don't have to worry about that. Now, interesting, because he does then say, I just need to know where and when, and I'll make sure it's done. So does that mean Dorothy would die if taking into the care of Kipling? Because we do know, as interesting of a character Kipling is, he's more darker than what he comes across. He was literally going to kill the kid from the Cult of the Unwritten Book if Rita hadn't have stopped him. So I wouldn't put it past him that he would have somehow got to Dorothy, like ended her life. But maybe he wouldn't have. But maybe it would have been a rotten kind of prison cell, like infused with magic that would stop her abilities from summoning world-ending situations, maybe. That moment of when Niles' face was just at the end, an impossible thing to comprehend what he's even doing himself, but you're almost forced to do it. I think that's such an interesting, complex story, and in addition to this character that, wow. Like, Doom Patrol never ceases to amaze me, but you can imagine how this is going to go next episode. With Dorothy inevitably finding out. This is probably how another wish is going to be made. Absolutely brilliant episode. Wacky, weird, entertaining. Gave us stuff to look forward to and be fascinated by when it comes to Miranda, Niles, and several other factors like Roni. I can't wait to see what happens. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, guys. I can't wait to read all of your comments. And make sure, if you want to talk to me about this, you can head over to my Discord server. We have a Doom Patrol chat there, a Doom Patrol spoilers chat, voice chat. You can check it all out for yourself. Link, as always, is in top pinned comment. Check out my interview yesterday. Why not? If you're a Stargirl fan. Yeah, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see all of you Doom Patrollers in the next video. Goodbye.